Welcome to the Elevated Woman's Podcast, your guide to optimal health and confidence. I'm Dr. Ade Akindipe, family nurse practitioner and women's health coach. I help women in midlife reset their bodies and reclaim their confidence. So this is the place where real talk meets real solutions. No quick fixes, no fluff, just the tools, strategies, and stories you need to break free from stubborn weight gain, balancing your hormones, and stepping into your healthiest self yet. Whether you're navigating perimenopause, menopause, or simply just tired of feeling like your body's working against you, then you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of The Elevated Woman. If you've been hearing about the oral GLP-1 medications everywhere, especially now that it's been FDA approved, I'm sure this is something that some of you might be considering taking if maybe the injectables were not accessible due to cost, or you just didn't like injectables in general. So these medications promise weight loss, right? And you're wondering if this is right for you and why it feels so confusing with so much information out there. Well, you're not alone. So a lot of midlife women are navigating hormonal changes, and they're wondering if this is something that might be helpful. So they're being offered GLP-1 medications as a tool, but what we're finding is that a lot of women are being offered the GLP-1s without conversations about hormones, your metabolism, muscles, or long-term success. What happens when you stop the medication? And that's where things kind of go wrong. So today we are breaking down the difference between oral GLP-1s and the injectables, what they actually do in a midlife body, and how to use them strategically, not as a quick fix, so you don't lose muscle, wreck your metabolism, or rebound the weight later. Okay, so as a midlife women's health and weight loss coach, what I do on a daily basis is coach women, especially who are navigating these perimenopausal and menopause changes, to help heal their gut, lose stubborn weight, and feel like themselves again without all these extreme or shame or just burnout. So I'm hoping that you will take away key differences between the oral GLP-1s and injectables, why midlife women respond differently than younger bodies, the most common mistakes women make on GLP-1s, and how to use my specific method that I used to coach my women to make GLP-1s work with your physiology and not against it. All right, let's get into it. So what GLP-1s actually do in the body? What do? They work simply by slowing down gastric emptying. In other words, they make you feel full faster. That's it. So what's great about these medications is that they improve blood sugar signaling. And I've talked about this at different episodes. They basically help reduce appetite so that it controls the amount of insulin that your pancreas produces. So here's the part for midlife women though. They do not fix hormones. They do not fix your metabolism, your muscles, or your response to stress. They simply lower the volume on hunger signals. Some people describe it as turning off that food noise people hear, right? So you are not broken if this helps you eat less, but eating less alone is not enough in midlife, right? Eat less, move more. I'm sure you've heard of this. Eating less and moving more will help you lose weight. Sometimes it's a little bit more complicated than that. So let's break this down a little bit more simpler. Injectable GLPs like your Ozempics and Wegovy, they're stronger and more consistent with absorption. So these are the injections that are injected usually in the stomach area or anywhere that there might be some fatty tissue. What they do is they work in a long-term way. They last about 7 days. That's why you only need to take it once a week. Longer lasting appetite suppression. But the problem is that there is a high risk of under eating. So what women will do is they'll say they feel great because they're eating less. They like it. But if you're not careful, you could also lose muscle and get tired if you're not being supported properly. Oral GLPs, on the other hand, are more gentler and more gradual, right? They last shorter so that you have to take them every day. They're often better tolerated for women sensitive to nausea or digestion changes. So which one is better? I wouldn't say one is better than the other. The question though is your metabolism supported while using this. Midlife women, especially when navigating perimenopause, your hormones are constantly shifting and changing. So you already are predisposed to lower estrogen. Lower estrogen can lead to slower metabolism. Lower progesterone can make the way you respond to stress might not be as great as before. You lose that calming effect from the progesterone, right? So if you have less of that, that can really affect how you respond to stress. So your cortisol level, your stress hormone, could be higher, right? When you have a higher level of cortisol, then you're stressed out. So that'll also impact your blood sugars, easier muscle loss, reduced insulin sensitivity, right? What you want is to be sensitive to insulin so that your blood sugars are more controlled. So if your appetite goes down, but nutrition, protein, and strength training don't go up, that's where weight loss becomes metabolically expensive. Okay. So we see this constantly in the clinic. Women are eating too little protein, skipping meals because they just don't feel hungry. They're losing muscle instead of fat. We check. That's why every time, these women come into the clinic, we are putting them on a body composition and we're measuring from month to month how much weight they've lost, not just the number, but how is your muscle? Are you losing muscle from month to month in pounds? It's not uncommon to see steady a little bit, but when you're losing 3, 5, 10 pounds of muscle, you're just getting weaker. You're getting more flabbier. You're not stronger. You should be energized and strong. So that's why in an intake or in an assessment, when you're coming back for your follow-up, you should be asked, how is your energy level? How is your sleep? Not just, are you hungry? Or have you lost any weight? What are your blood sugars doing? It's a great idea, even though you might be on a GLP, it's a great idea to actually check to see what your blood sugars are doing. Are they creeping up? Are they too low, especially if you're eating less, right? So it's not just about eating less and not just being on a medication just to lose weight. The other things we also see too is not strength training at all. Whether it's using your body weight, whether it's using weights, strength training is key while being on these medications, whether you're on an oral medication or the injectable. Ignoring gut health and minerals. So the great thing about these medications is they help you eat less. But if you are using this and maybe incorporating fasting into this, because it can help you probably go through a prolonged fast, but you also have to make sure that during your eating window, you are eating appropriately. What is appropriately? You're eating proteins, getting your minerals and staying anti-inflammatory. If you want a list of foods we recommend for people who are taking oral GLPs or injectables or GLPs in general, check our show notes. There's a resource guide there for you. And then, once you stop the medication and the weight comes back on, people wonder why, right? So it's physiology. You have the signal that's causing you to eat less, but until you deal with the root cause of the weight gain, it's really difficult for that weight to completely go off unless you plan on being on this medicine for the rest of your life. So using GLPs the right way. GLPs should sit on top of what we call the DANRE method. What is DANRE? We'll talk about it. So DANRE, right? D is for digestion. If your digestion is slow, you're bloated, you're nauseous, support stomach acid. You need to support bile flow. We need to hydrate. You need to have fiber before increasing the dose. And unfortunately, that's why, and if you look at the side effect profile of these medications, it'll tell you that you're at risk for gallbladder disease because it slows digestion. So if it's slowing down your digestion, but your digestion was already slow to begin with or sluggish, you had poor gut health, you can actually end up hurting yourself while on these medications. I know a number of people who have began these medications who ended up in the hospital and probably ended up having emergent surgery because they had poor gut health. You add this medication on top of it. They're not eating as much, or when they do eat, they're eating the wrong foods and then they end up hurting themselves. Okay. A is for adequate protein. So protein protects your metabolism. So midlife women on GLPs need to be intentional about taking in protein, even when your appetite is low. And that's why women will come in and say, well, I noticed that I'm still on a small amount of medication when my friend is on 2 milligrams. It's not about how much medication you're on. If you're on a lower dose and it's working for you, you don't need to keep titrating up if you're losing weight. So you don't want to shut off the drive to eat. You want to eat. You want to be able to eat, but it supports satiety, meaning you feel full. So if you're going to be on this medication, you need to really focus on look at what you're eating. Are you getting enough protein? Are you going for the carbs first? So protein first at every meal that you eat. Take in liquid protein if you feel heavy with solids. So if you have to grab a bar, if you get a protein shake, that is probably where you need to get some grams of protein in. If you're sensitive to lactose, there are lots of lactose-free protein shakes that are out there. Just be very careful about those that might have added sugar to them. Remember, muscle preservation is greater than weight on the scale. This is why every woman that comes through our clinic, we check a body composition. Just because your weight has not changed doesn't mean that you're not making any progress, right? N is for nervous system regulation. Lower appetite doesn't mean lower stress. Cortisol, your stress hormone, still drives fat storage. Sleep, walking, breath work, and not overtraining are critical here, okay? R is for resistance training. This is non-negotiable. GLP-1s and no strength training equals muscle loss. And ladies, like I said before, you don't have to become a bodybuilder. You can start with squats, wall sits, push-ups, and modify them if you have to. There are lots of videos on YouTube that you can get started with just to kind of get some exercise in. Starting small, maybe it's 10 minutes, maybe it's 15 minutes. Muscle is your metabolic safety net, okay? Make sure if you are taking these medications, you are preserving muscle with protein and strength training. And then lastly is E. E is for endocrine or hormone support. Estrogen, progesterone, insulin, thyroid, none are fixed with GLPs alone. Blood sugar stability, minerals, and micronutrients matter. So GLP-1s don't cause success. It's the system that does. This is a tool. I tell them all the time. I tell my assistants, I said, listen, if we get calls from people asking for GLPs, please tell them to go somewhere else. I mean it. We're not a pharmacy. We do not sell medication. It is a tool that we use to help support you. But everything, including behavioral change, has to happen, right? Think of GLP-1s like training wheels, right? They help you stabilize while you learn how to fuel properly, how to manage stress, how to protect your muscles, how to eat in a way that supports your hormones. If you never learn the balance, then the moment the training wheels come off, guess what? You wobble and you fall, right? You gain the weight back. So the takeaway here is orals and injectable GLP-1s work differently, but neither one of them is magic. Midlife physiology requires muscle, protein, nervous system support, okay? GLPs are a tool, not a fix. The Donray method that we just used is what makes weight loss sustainable. So if this episode helped you, send it to another midlife woman who's confused or overwhelmed by all the GLP talk. And make sure you are following for more education on midlife hormones, metabolism, gut health, and sustainable weight loss, because you deserve clarity, not confusion. Until next time, stay elevated. Thank you for tuning in to the Elevated Woman's podcast. If today's episode resonates with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend who needs this conversation too. And if you're ready to stop guessing and start thriving, head over to our website. It's listed in the show notes to learn more about our Elevated Women's coaching program. That's where we take these conversations deeper and create a more personalized plan for your hormones, your weight, energy, and more. Check out our show notes. I've linked free tools and cheat sheets to help you get started right away. For more daily tips and inspiration, come hang out with me on Instagram at The Elevated Woman Coach. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Thriving Over 40 with Dr. Akindipe. Until next time, stay elevated.